spring beaver time. So we had to kind of make it up, trench it out. So the first one I'll show you is, this is a bank den. So you come up, you come along, you see an indent like this, and you can feel with your foot, you come up and you're like, oh, yep, it's going up underneath. So he's got a den up in here somewhere. And it'll look similar to just like this. So then what you do is, don't forget your safety, which is what you want. Oh. Eric's grabbing the safety.
Yeah, I seen you had it on a what do you call it, a lanyard there around your neck, which is a really good idea. That is, you just, especially with, well, any time you're using a trap that size, you want to make sure that safety is number one. And then with a trap that size, it's only legal to be at least halfway in the water. He'll probably cover that.
Yep, halfway submerged by Minnesota state law. So here it is. So this is a little bit, so everybody's got, I should cover this. Everybody traps a little bit differently, and I'm not saying this is exactly the way you need to do it. Over time, guys they'll create their own methods. A lot is like trigger place, like how to place your triggers. This is how I like running them. Some guys go narrow, some guys go wider, some guys do the T, just like up there with the baited set. This is just what I do. So, and it works.
Do you trim the triggers every once in a while, or because
Nope.
I know the ones I have are like a little bit longer. Do you trim them ever? Or?
No, that's just
Okay.
how I just leave them how they come from the factory.
Okay.
You know, just like that. All right, so
And for you guys starting out, if you are using 230s, you probably want to get that part of it all done up on solid ground, because you notice how tough that is. And what you really don't want to do is get halfway committed and have it get away from you.
So, since I'm talking and whatnot, everything else, I'll leave the safety on, I'll leave the other safeties on, just for demonstrational purposes. Okay, so the trap is set, but the safeties are still on. So what I like doing is, a lot of times, the beaver might be in here, it might not, in a bank den, and even on my Castor mounds, I always like running the trigger inwards like that. My catches went up as soon as I started running it more in, because the beaver has to come in further before he sets that trap off. It was a couple years ago, I was struggling and had a lot of snap traps. I lost a trap, beaver must have caught a foot in it, snapped off the wire. Even on double strand, he snapped it off because he's on land struggling. So I found out you get more of a humane catch, better catches if you're running this inwards. Maybe some other guys disagree, maybe they running it on this side, as in like this, but I don't. I like, especially on Castor mounds, I like running it inward that way. So right now this is an illegal set, but this is just for demonstrational purposes, because it's not halfway submerged. So this is a bank den, so what I'll do is I'll grab a, let's see here, I don't want to use it, this is my anti-swivel stick I'll use, and this will be my actual one going through the spring. So when it's on a deeper one, what you do is you kind of start it like that, and you hold it as it's going down, bring it down with it, and then you set her down like that. And that's actually pretty darn good. Now what I do is I'll push it down like so it's kind of solid down in the bottom. And another way you can tell it's a good beaver run is this ground underneath will be pretty solid, because those beaver are pushing with their feet and hitting it, and it'll be kind of a packed bottom. A lot of times on real heavy runs, it'll be almost like a sand. because they washed away all this silt and everything else, and it'll be almost comes like sandy on a real active run. And then this is my,
Now, if this was really a bank run, that water would be a little deeper there. That the trap would be basically underwater completely, right?
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So all this right now would be completely down, underneath the water.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, this is why I like going on this notch. So if you go on the inner notch, you're going to run into issues on these belials. If you go on the outer one like that, I'll show you. It gives you a little bit more room to get this, because it's all underwater. A lot of times this can still move, but you want to get this this anti-swivel stick right in between the jaws like that. So now this is solid. This beaver comes up, I mean, it's very, very little play. It's a pretty darn solid trap. When they come up, you'll hit it, and you get a really good connection. That's the way I like running. Even on lodges, that's how I like running either a run coming off there or a banked end set. That's how I like doing it. So now we'll go into the Castor mound set. It can be a little bit different. So this one's going to be legal. So this is going to make an ideal Castor mound set. Now this one's just a tish different. When it's like, I like running most of my Castor mound sets like this. You can do it the other way and turn it to the side, but a lot of times you don't have enough water. And if you run into it and you can't get the trap in like this, just take your foot and make it legal. You know, kind of trench it out a little bit. That way you're legal.
Tap in the water, you say, yes.
Yep. So then here, you're gonna go on either side.
Once again, he has green sticks here you'd want to be using.
Yep, dead sticks when you're setting.
Or peeled sticks, completely peeled. Beavers already chewed them, eaten the bark.
Yep.
They were looking.
And a lot of times around the area, you're gonna find plenty of dead sticks.
Okay.
Then that's it like that. What I like doing is for a Castor mound set, kind of blend this in a little bit. Like so. I mean, you don't have to get crazy with it. You're just kind of blending. Beavers aren't the smartest animal in the woods.
Until you educate them.
Until you educate them. And then they can be hard. So that's all you're doing. You're just kind of blending it in, disguising it a little bit. Just like that.
They have no problem going through little choke downs like that, or
You just want to make it look like the easiest way to get to the next step is through that opening. That's really what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and then up in here, so say this is a run, you flop this and you're putting Castor mound. So what you can do up in here is you're making kind of a makeshift Castor mound. You're telling the beaver, hey, there's another beaver here. So there it is. I mean, you can even kind of slick it up a little bit, you know. That's a trail going up, slick it up, shine it up. And then I got my fake bottle. I'll put some Castor mound or Castor on it on the Castor mound. So there's the Castor. What I do is right by it, kind of directly in front of the trap. There it is. So he's gonna come up. He's got eye appeal. He's got the smell, and he's gonna come. If he's never been trapped before, he's coming. He's gonna get in that trap.
Do you have any favorite Castor brands or scents or anything, or just?
I've always done Hawbakers. Castor's Castor, and you know I've gotten cheap before, so like especially when the Castor prices are down, I'll take the Castor out myself, and then I'll just kind of cut it up. I've actually mixed it up in a jar before with, I used the wrong stuff. I think you're supposed to use glycerol?
Glycol.
Glycol.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I used,
Polyglycol.
yeah, I used the wrong stuff. I used, it still worked. I used, Vaseline.
Okay.
Yeah, and it still worked, and I caught beaver. You just want that Castor scent. Yeah. Yeah, and you don't even need to mix it up. I mean, you can just cut a Castor and then literally stick it on that stick, and that'll work too.
So there'll be times, let's say you caught the big male and not the big female, you could use his Castor or oil gland to catch her. Otherwise, this Castor, like he took out and used, would be good to use on a completely different family, because then they think it's an intruder coming in.
Yeah.
You know, it works both ways. If you caught just the small ones, you might not catch the adults with the small ones, Castors, but oftentimes the two mates, you might get them. I've had to use the mate's oil glands to get the other one before.
Yeah, you don't want to use like the kits from the same lodge. I don't think that would work out so hot.
Right.
So, but is any questions on that?
This set right here, in the spring especially, it'll be 90% of your sets. And
Oh yeah, I mean,
if there was a beaver house over there, a big fresh beaver house that had a family in it, you put 5 traps out, you'd have 3 or 4 of them in sets like this the next day. Very common in the spring.
there's literally thousands of beaver in the spring caught in Minnesota off of just this set.
And then you either want to be on the pond that they're on, or just on a moving water, because they're going to run any moving water, and they're going to cross other beavers' territory. But that's where you can pick off the locals and the ones that are passing through.
Yeah, your river systems, like for spring beaver, a lot of times your river systems, guys will start on them because your ponds haven't thawed out yet, and they'll set up just off the road, catching those 2-year-olds, because in the spring the 2-year-olds are getting kicked out, so they got to find their own home. So they're moving down those water systems, just passing through, like what he's saying. So every spring they're getting kicked out.
And in the fall, they have their home territory, and only that family's there. But then you got to hike into where they're living, and then they're going to have runs like this going up to where they're cutting wood to bring back for their dam, their lodge, their food cache for the winter, all that stuff. And you can either make a casserole, or you can just set those runs that are going up into the woods.
Yep.
Then
And
he
with
has
a
the
set
triggers.
similar.
He has the triggers coming up on this. That's the same way I set them too. I've seen some people have them go down. The triggers are more blinded this way. You can't see them. But one reason I like how he has it is he put his safety on the bottom of the trap. Then his triggers are down at the bottom pointing up, and when he's all done, he can take the safety off. If you had it just that way, but his trigger's going down, then he'd be digging down in the mud for his safety. Probably forgetting it because it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and you brought up, that reminds me, that brings up a good point. So the reason I run my triggers down is for that. And also you saw I do it the same way in the wintertime. I run the triggers down. There's another point to it. So you have them the other way around and you're catching beaver. What happens is that dog that's attached to that trigger will come down, and you'll take out some of the fur sometimes on this back side, and they'll ding you on it when you're getting graded. So if you're coming underneath like this, when that trap's coming, that dog's catching here. So when you're skinning beaver, I don't know if they're showing it today, but your first cut is here anyways. So they'll never even know, even if you're missing some fur there, it won't make a bit of difference.
Or it'll be right on the edge of worst case scenario to where you could almost trim it off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. And in the spring, especially, in the spring you can take some pretty big chunks of fur out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another reason. Run the triggers down.
So another reason can be is because they, like if you're on a crossover or something, water splashing, that can freeze on the top jaw and be hard to fire. We're down underwater, it's not freezing unless it gets really cold.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess I can, you want me to dibble dabble into the otter stuff a little bit?
Sure can.
So for me, for otters, don't get me wrong, Castor mounds, if you do enough of them, you're gonna catch otters. And there's a pile of otter in Minnesota right now. And all you do is you call the game warden, say, hey.
What he's saying is otter season is only open in the fall.
Yep.
Through early winter.
Yeah.
And then in the late winter and spring it's not.
So it's just a matter of time. Eventually you're gonna catch one. Just call up the game warden, say, hey, I got an accidental catch, and they'll just come and get it from you. So it's not end of the world. You didn't try to, it happens. The one way to avoid it is, if I'm targeting otter, there's crossover. So say you got a body of water, you got a body of water here, you got a body of water here, and you see a trail coming just like this, and it'll be very distinct. Well, I put a 220 here, just like this, and a 220 here, and you'll catch otter. But in the springtime, you want to avoid those because they're dynamite. A lot of times they're
Beaver
old.
will use those too, but there's other ways to catch a beaver instead of that set.
Yeah. A lot of times it's old beaver lodges. A lot of times it's, it might be just, I found them down, out grouse hunting, and there'd be a small pond, and then there'd be a lake, and then you can see it, and it's only probably, 30 yards wide, the trail, but you can see where they're coming up out of that pond, and they're going back down into that lake with fish. And then, of course, they make a toilet a lot of times, and if there's clamshells, fish and stuff like that, and there's scat, then that's otter.
And if you're trapping in the fall, like you were going to be trapping on these spots that got beaver now, after you got the beaver thinned down, just plain leaving your sets there in runs, in the bank runs and stuff, you have a good chance of catching an otter.
Because
They're going to come in
the
and
beaver
take
go
over.
into, the otter go into beaver lodges, and
Yeah.
especially once you take the beaver out, they'll go into bank dens.
Yeah, and I've actually caught them. I've caught them off of baited sets.
Yeah, when there's enough around, just by chance, you're going to catch them by having a trap out there. But there is ways to increase your chances of getting them, and that is basically to get your trap in their pathway, like you were saying on that crossover. Because it's hard to bait an otter, like you're baiting beaver, because they're so very well fed themselves that they generally, you just need to get them in find out where you think they're going and get a trap in there.
Yeah, so that pretty much covers. I mean, there's other specialty ways. I've seen guys get real creative underneath the ice with footholds, and it's a lot of work. But these are the quickest, easiest, most ethical ways to trap.
Those books each of you got will be ways to foothold and drown beaver too.
Yeah, which I do. Yeah, especially if I get a trap smart beaver, I'll slap a foothold in.
That's the only way you'll get them.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Or snare. Yeah. And sometimes I target them because they're extra fun. I like the challenge.
Any questions on beaver trapping?
Kits. Are you talking about the traps?
The kits?
Yeah.
Kits are baby beaver, essentially. They're born.
The young of the year. They're not really a baby anymore, but they're that year's litter.
We'll be skinning one.
Yeah, they'll be skinning one today. Yeah, they're.
It's just
I
another
shouldn't
name
say
for a young
baby,
beaver,
but
yeah.
they're very small beaver.
People call them kits until they're a year old. That's generally the way they're.
Yeah. Especially so if you're doing any fall beaver trapping. I mean, I've seen guys catch kits, that big.
Yeah.
I mean, just teeny little guys.
Catch about a head and a tail in there.
So, but yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. And hopefully you can teach somebody else someday. Yeah. So you're up
All right.
next.
Yes, I am going to go over some mink,
Gary, you're good.
muskrat,
It's
raccoon
10:45.
trap. All right. First, just a couple things on trapping in general.
All right, so there it is, guys. I just want to say thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dewey, for inviting me. Made me feel good. I got to help out somebody, and that's what it's all about, guys. That's the main thing why I'm doing this YouTube channel. I don't get paid, and it's all good, because at the end of the day, it's gonna help out somebody down the road. I didn't cover every single little thing because I was allotted 45 minutes, and you know, if you have any questions, just jot them down, you know, in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them, and yeah, until next time, if you can, if you're new, subscribe, and I will catch you guys later.